Subject, ex-wife asked for open marriage and instantly regretted it. True, Ryan here, I figured I'd share my story too. Maybe some guy out there will see this and realize he doesn't have to be anybody's backup plan. This all started in 2015. I was 27 at the time, living in my hometown in North Carolina. It was one of those humid spring days where you can't tell if it's about to rain or just choke you with the heat. I stopped by Five Guys for lunch. Nothing special, just grabbing a burger and fries before heading back to work. I was standing in line when this woman walked in behind me. She was gorgeous, curly brown hair, light brown eyes, and this confidence about her that caught me off guard. She looked like the kind of woman who had every guy in the room staring. I remember glancing back and asking if she wanted to go ahead of me because she only had her phone and keys in her hand, no purse. She smiled and said, "Nah, I'm still deciding what I want." When it was my turn to order, I told the cashier what I wanted, and when I heard her start ordering behind me, I just told the cashier, "Put hers on mine." She kind of froze and gave me this half smile like she didn't know if I was serious. I said, "It's just lunch, I insist." She laughed and said, "You're not one of those nice guys who expect something back, are you?" I laughed too and said, "No, I just like good company while I eat." That was it. We sat together that day, talked for almost an hour, and exchanged numbers before we left. Her name was Tanya. Looking back now, that was probably the first sign of me being what people call a simp. But at the time, I didn't see it that way. I just thought I was being a gentleman. After that lunch, we started talking every day. Texting, FaceTiming, meeting up for dinner. Everything felt easy and natural. We started dating exclusively about a month later, and those first 2 years were amazing. We took weekend trips to Asheville, went hiking, stayed in little cabins, drank wine by the fireplace. We hit the beach whenever we could. She loved seafood, so we'd drive out to the coast, eat crab legs, and walk the boardwalk like some corny couple in a movie. She always told me how different I was from other men, how I listened, how I cared. She said I made her feel safe. I didn't realize then that sometimes when a woman says that, it doesn't mean attraction, it means comfort. There's a difference. Anyway, 3 years after meeting, I proposed. We got married in 2018. It was a small ceremony, family, close friends, and a few coworkers. We danced to John Legend's All of Me. I thought that song was written about us. And for the first few months, everything still felt perfect, but slowly, things started to change. It was subtle at first. Little complaints about the smallest things. How I folded the towels. How I didn't load the dishwasher right. How I didn't show enough initiative when it came to planning dates. I brushed it off. I figured, hey, everyone adjusts after marriage. But the longer we were married, the worse it got. She started staying out later with friends. I noticed she was glued to her phone, smiling at her screen more than she smiled at me. When I'd ask about it, she'd snap, "It's just memes, Ryan. Chill." She started criticizing my job too. I work as an auto tech, been in the field for over a decade. I make a solid living, but she'd compare me to her coworkers' husbands who worked in IT or finance. "They're talking about buying lake houses," she'd say. "We can barely plan a vacation without budgeting for months." It stung, because I worked hard. I was up at 6 every day, sometimes home at 7 or 8 at night, hands covered in grease. I wasn't lazy, but nothing I did was enough. I dealt with that for almost 2 years before things really hit the wall. It was last spring when she sat me down at the kitchen table. I could tell something was off because she'd been quiet all week, kind of distant. I thought maybe she was dealing with stress at work, but no. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't know if getting married was the right thing for us. I feel like I missed out. I think we should have an open marriage." At first I laughed. I thought she was joking. But when I realized she was serious, I just froze. My mind went blank. All I could think was, after everything we've been through, this is what you want? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, if that's what you truly want, then okay. Truth is, by that point I was emotionally done. I had been so drained trying to fix things that I had nothing left to give. And I'll admit it, I'd started noticing other women. A few of my coworkers had flirted with me before, and I'd always brushed it off. But after that conversation, something inside me flipped. The next few weeks were strange. We agreed to keep things respectful. No bringing people home. No rubbing it in each other's faces. I figured she'd be the first to explore that freedom she wanted. But surprisingly, I was. There was a woman named Erica who worked at the same repair shop as me. She handled scheduling and billing. She was funny, smart, and always made me laugh when my day was going sideways. I'd catch myself smiling at her texts. Then there was another woman, Jen, who I met through a friend. She was a nurse, recently divorced, and easy to talk to. I'll be real. I hadn't slept with my wife in over a month by then. The marriage was dead, physically and emotionally. So yeah, when Erica and I started hanging out outside of work, things moved quickly. I know some guys reading this might judge me, but when you've been made to feel unwanted for that long, and then someone actually desires you, it's hard not to respond. At first, I thought it was just physical, but Erica and I clicked in ways I hadn't experienced in years. We'd talk for hours after work, go out for drinks, grab dinner, and eventually spend nights together. I started realizing how peaceful life could feel when you're with someone who doesn't criticize you for existing. About 2 months into the open marriage, I woke up around 3 a.m. one night to my wife standing over me, holding my phone. Her face was red, tears in her eyes, and she just said, "So this is what you wanted?" I was half asleep and confused until she threw my phone at my chest. "You're building a life with someone else while I'm sitting here alone," she screamed. She had gone through my texts and seen everything, the good morning messages, the photos, the jokes, even the way Erica and I talked about going away for a weekend. I sat up and told her calmly, "You asked for this." She started crying harder and said, "I didn't think you'd actually do it. I thought we'd realize we missed each other." I just shook my head. I told her, "I think we're past that. I think a divorce is what we need." She begged me not to make any decisions while we were angry, but I was done. I couldn't go back after that. She opened the door. I just walked through it. The next few days were chaos. She alternated between pretending everything was normal and accusing me of betraying her. It was almost like she wanted the idea of an open marriage, but couldn't handle the reality of me actually finding happiness outside of her. I remember one night she came into the living room and said, "I can't eat. I can't sleep. I just want my husband back." I told her, "Then you should have thought about that before you gave him permission to leave." That's when I knew I was done for good. I'll be honest, part of me felt guilty for moving on so fast, but another part of me felt relieved, like I was finally free from walking on eggshells every day. Erica was patient with me, never pushing for labels or ultimatums. She just let things happen naturally. Meanwhile, Tanya went from calm to erratic. She'd call me 20 times in a row, then block me, then unblock me to send another message about how I threw everything away. At that point, I told her I was contacting a lawyer. I didn't want drama. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted peace. She didn't take it well. Tanya broke down after I told her I wanted a divorce. Well, that was just the beginning of the real chaos. After that night, the energy in the house was like walking through a minefield. Every morning, she'd either pretend everything was normal, cooking breakfast, humming in the kitchen, or she'd act cold and distant, slamming doors and giving me death stares. I'd wake up early, grab my keys, and head out before she could start one of her guilt trips. A few days later, I started looking for a divorce attorney. I didn't tell her right away because I knew she'd try to talk me out of it or make a scene. I found a guy named Mark Peterson, who came highly recommended by a coworker who had gone through his own nasty divorce. Mark was a straight shooter, no sugarcoating, no drama. He told me exactly what I needed to do and what to expect. When I met with him, he asked, Ryan, are you 100% sure this is what you want? I said, yes, sir, I'm done. He nodded and said, then be prepared. She's going to go through stages: guilt, denial, anger, and desperation. Stay calm through all of it. Don't engage in emotional arguments. Everything through text or email. Nothing verbal unless absolutely necessary. That advice ended up saving me later. When Tanya found out I'd actually hired a lawyer, she lost it. I came home from work one night and she was sitting on the couch holding a glass of wine, eyes red from crying. The divorce papers were sitting on the coffee table, unopened, but she knew what they were. You really did it? She asked. I nodded. She got up and started pacing. Ryan, we don't need to throw everything away. We just need help. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I said, you can't fix something that's already broken, Tanya. You made your choice. She shouted. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to feel desired again. I wanted to know if we still had options. I said, you did have options. You had me. But you didn't want that. That's when she threw her glass at the wall. It shattered, red wine everywhere. She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. That was the last night I ever slept in that house. The next day, I packed a duffel bag and some work clothes, called my buddy from the shop, and crashed at his place for a week while I figured out my next steps. Tanya called me nonstop, alternating between crying and cursing me out. I ignored most of it. Erica, the woman I had been seeing, told me to stay focused. She said, don't let her pull you back into the chaos. She's trying to control the narrative. Erica had been through her own messy breakup years ago, so she knew the pattern. After a week, I officially moved into a small apartment not far from work. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with a balcony and creaky floors, but it was mine. It was peaceful. I remember sitting out there my first night, just listening to the crickets, thinking I can finally breathe again. But Tanya wasn't about to let go that easily. She started showing up at my job. The first time, she brought lunch like we were still together. She smiled at my coworkers, acting like nothing had happened. She handed me the bag and whispered, "Can we talk later?" I told her no, that everything needed to go through the lawyer. She smiled through gritted teeth and said, "You're not going to divorce me over a misunderstanding, Ryan." I said, "It's not a misunderstanding. It's a decision." That's when she started crying in the parking lot. My coworkers saw everything. I felt embarrassed more than anything else. 2 days later, I got a call from Erica, her voice shaking. She said, "Ryan, your wife was outside my house." I said, "What do you mean outside your house?" She said, "I saw her sitting in her car down the street." I thought maybe I was overthinking it, but when I came out to leave for work this morning, she followed me halfway there. I pulled into a gas station and she just drove off. I was furious. I texted Tanya immediately. "Stay away from Erica. Stay away from me. We're done." She replied, "You made me like this, Ryan. You pushed me to this." That night, I stayed at Erica's place to keep her calm. Around 2 a.m., we heard a loud bang outside. Erica ran to the window, and I followed her. Tanya was outside, swinging a tire iron at Erica's car, smashing the windows one by one. I ran outside, yelling, "Tanya, what the hell are you doing?" She screamed back, "You ruined my life, Ryan. You left me for her." I grabbed my phone and started recording. She realized what I was doing, dropped the tire iron, got in her car, and sped off. I called the police immediately and filed a report. That was the moment I stopped feeling pity for her. Up until then, part of me still felt bad that things ended the way they did. But watching her destroy someone else's property out of spite, that erased any leftover guilt I had. Erica was shaken but strong. The cops came, took photos, and told her to file a restraining order. I filed one too, just to cover myself. Tanya tried to deny it, said it wasn't her, but she forgot that I had her on video. After that incident, Mark, my lawyer, told me to go full no contact, everything through email or attorney correspondence only. Tanya's next move was classic emotional manipulation. She emailed me saying she was pregnant. I'll admit, for a second my heart dropped. But when I asked for proof and said I'd go with her to the appointment, she ghosted me for 2 weeks. Then she sent another email saying she lost it and that I didn't care enough to check on her. Mark told me, "Don't respond. She's fishing for attention." A few days later, I got served with a temporary restraining order against me. Apparently, she claimed I was harassing and stalking her. Luckily, I had months of texts, emails, and call logs showing it was the opposite. When we went to court, her story fell apart instantly. The judge actually scolded her for wasting the court's time and lifted the order immediately. That humiliation must have set her off, because she went nuclear after that. She started calling my family, telling them I had cheated, that I had abandoned her when she was trying to save the marriage. My mother called me crying, asking if it was true. I told her the truth. I said, "Mom, she asked for an open marriage." I agreed, and she regretted it when she realized I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her to decide what she wanted. My mom didn't say much after that. She just said, "I raised you to be loyal, not a fool. I get it now." After a few weeks, Tanya tried a new tactic, playing nice. She emailed me saying she wanted to end things peacefully. I agreed, as long as it went through the attorneys. But what she really wanted was to drag the process out. Every time Mark sent over a draft of the settlement, she'd take weeks to respond, nitpicking every minor thing. She even tried to claim half of my tools from work, saying they were marital assets. I laughed when I read that. Mark just shook his head and said, "Don't worry, judges see this all the time." The court date finally came around that fall. Tanya walked in looking completely different. New hair, new outfit, but the same attitude. She sat there pretending to be composed, but her eyes were darting back and forth the whole time. When the judge asked if there was any chance of reconciliation, she looked at me and said, "If he'd just stop being stubborn, maybe." I said, "No, Your Honor, there's no chance." You could see her face drop. It was like reality finally hit her in that moment. The judge granted the divorce and divided everything cleanly. I kept my tools, my truck, and my savings. She got the house since it was in her name before we married. I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter than I had in years. Outside, Tanya tried one last time. She grabbed my arm and said, "Ryan, please. We can start fresh. We can date again, no labels, just us figuring it out." I looked her right in the eye and said, "You wanted freedom. You got it." Then I walked away. That night, I took Erica out to dinner. Nothing fancy, just a quiet steakhouse. She toasted to new beginnings. I remember smiling, thinking about how surreal it all was. But of course, Tanya couldn't let it end quietly. About a month later, she started messaging Erica again from fake accounts. Little things like, "He'll do you like he did me," or "enjoy being his next project." Erica showed me everything. I reported it, and after a few warnings from my lawyer, Tanya finally stopped. By the end of that year, I was officially free. Legally, mentally, emotionally. I changed my number, deleted her contact info, and blocked her on every platform. You'd think that would be the end of it, but I ran into her about 6 months later. I was at Lowe's picking up some parts for a side job when I saw her in the paint aisle. For a split second, I thought about turning around, but she saw me first. She looked exhausted, eyes sunken, hair a mess. She smiled weakly and said, "Hey." I said, "Hey, Tanya." She asked, "You still seeing that girl?" I said, "Yeah, I am." She nodded and said, "Good for you. I'm happy you found someone who could handle you." It sounded sarcastic, but there was pain underneath it. I just said, "Take care, Tanya," and walked off. That was the last time I ever saw her. As for Erica and me, we're still together. Things aren't perfect, but they're real. She knows what I went through, and she's patient when old wounds reopen. She's helped me rebuild a sense of peace I didn't even realize I lost. But more than that, I've learned who I am again. When you spend years being belittled, criticized, and manipulated, you start to believe that's normal. You start to think you deserve it. But once you step away and look back, you realize how warped it all was. Tanya didn't ruin my life. She revealed what I needed to change about myself. I used to think love was about self-sacrifice, about doing whatever it took to make the other person happy. But that's not love. That's martyrdom. Love requires balance. It requires boundaries. And if someone truly loves you, they won't ask you to destroy your own peace just to keep them comfortable. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I did the right thing, if maybe I should have fought harder for the marriage. But then I remember how she looked at me that night. She asked for an open marriage, cold, detached, already halfway out the door. She wasn't asking for healing. She was asking for permission to betray me without guilt. And the craziest part? She only wanted me back when she realized I could be happy without her. That's something I've seen a lot of guys go through. Women leave thinking the grass is greener, only to come crawling back when they see you thriving. To anyone reading this, let me say this clearly. You don't owe your ex another chance to destroy you. You can forgive them without reopening the door. You can heal without returning to the scene of the crime. I used to think walking away meant losing, but in reality, it's the biggest win you'll ever have because it means you finally chose yourself. So yeah, my ex asked for an open marriage and instantly regretted it. But the truth is, I'm grateful she did. Because without that moment, I might still be that same guy trying to fix what was never mine to fix. Now I have peace, and I protect it like my life depends on it, because it does. If you've ever gone through something like this, you know how it feels when the noise finally quiets down. At first, you're just happy to have peace, but after a while, that peace starts making room for reflection, and reflection brings regret. Not regret because you want to go back, but regret because you finally see all the places you went wrong. That's where I've been lately. It's been over a year since the divorce finalized. Tanya is long gone from my life, and I haven't heard a word from her since that awkward encounter at Lowe's. I don't wish her harm, and I don't spend my days thinking about her anymore. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes wish I had known then what I know now. The biggest regret I carry is how much of myself I gave up to keep someone else comfortable. When I met Tanya, I wanted to be her everything. I wanted to fix every bad day, solve every problem, and prove I was the kind of man she could trust. But in doing that, I stopped being my own person. I stopped checking in with myself. Every decision I made, where we went, what we spent, how I dressed, even how I spoke, was filtered through. Will she be happy with this? That's not love. That's self-erasure. And I let it happen because I thought that's what love was supposed to look like. I thought being dependable meant always saying yes. I thought being a good man meant sacrificing my happiness if it made hers easier. But what it really made me was resentful, exhausted, and disconnected from who I was. I look back now and realize that the signs were there long before the marriage fell apart. The way she would test my boundaries, see how far she could push before I'd speak up. The way she'd give backhanded compliments. You're such a good guy. I don't know why you're not more confident. The way she'd use her affection as a reward instead of something mutual. And instead of standing up for myself, I told myself I was being patient. I wasn't patient. I was scared. Scared of losing her. Scared of being alone. Scared that if I didn't keep her happy, I'd lose the dream I built in my head about what our relationship was supposed to be. So, yeah, I regret that. I regret being that version of myself who thought love had to be proven through pain. But here's the thing, regret doesn't have to destroy you, it can rebuild you if you use it right. After the divorce, I went through this long stretch of time where I didn't want to date, didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't even want to hear the word relationship. I'd go to work, come home, sit on my balcony with a drink, and just let silence teach me things that pain couldn't. That was my healing season, and it was ugly at times. There were nights I'd wake up sweating, thinking about old arguments, replaying every moment I could have handled differently. But those nights taught me accountability. It's easy to point the finger at an ex and say, she ruined everything. But if I'm being honest, I played my part too. I allowed disrespect because I was afraid of confrontation. I accepted less because I didn't believe I deserved more. That's on me. When you really face that truth, not as a weapon to beat yourself up, but as a lesson, it changes you. I started reading again, journaling, going to the gym consistently, not just to get stronger physically, but mentally. I started setting boundaries with people at work, with family, even with friends. I realized that peace isn't something you find, it's something you maintain. And the only way to maintain it is to stop letting people walk through your life with dirty shoes. And somewhere in the middle of that self-rebuilding process, Erica was still there. She didn't rush me. She didn't ask for labels or push for commitment. She just showed up, quietly, consistently, and with genuine care. I remember one night I told her, I feel broken. She said, good, because broken means open. You can rebuild stronger this time. That hit me. I know a lot of guys out there think once you've been hurt, you have to build this wall around yourself. No emotions, no trust, no vulnerability. But that's not healing. That's hiding. What I've learned from Erica and from my own mistakes is that healing doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means learning how to navigate it without losing yourself in the process. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not out here claiming I'm some enlightened monk. I still have moments of doubt. I still catch myself flinching when I see certain patterns, even if they're innocent. If Erica gets quiet or distracted, that old voice in my head whispers, here we go again. But the difference is, I don't let that voice control me anymore. I acknowledge it, breathe, and remember, not every woman is Tanya. And Erica has proven that time and again, she's 10 times better than my ex, not just because she treats me well, but because she holds me accountable, she communicates, and she doesn't use love as leverage. But even with someone like her, I'm not rushing anything. That's another lesson divorce taught me. Don't build castles on unsteady ground. When I was with Tanya, everything moved fast. We went from nice to meet you to I can't imagine life without you in a matter of weeks. And that speed felt romantic at the time. But now I see that it was a red flag disguised as passion. Real love doesn't rush. It unfolds. With Erica, I've learned to take my time. We've been dating for almost a year now, but we still live separately. We see each other a few times a week, travel occasionally, and keep our independence. She has her own goals, her own place, her own identity, and I respect that. I'm not trying to recreate a marriage. I'm building a partnership. Sometimes late at night, I think about how different my mindset is now compared to who I was just a few years ago. Back then, I thought commitment meant losing parts of yourself to merge into someone else's life. Now I know commitment is two whole people walking side by side, not one carrying the other. I'll be honest, there are still triggers. Certain songs, smells, or even random memories can take me back. Like the other week, I drove past that same Five Guys where I met Tanya. I hadn't been there in years. For a second, I thought about going in, but I couldn't. Not because of bitterness, but because that place represented a version of me that no longer exists. The version that thought love was about proving worth instead of recognizing it. I sat in the car for a while just thinking about how life can twist. You meet someone over burgers and fries, thinking it's fate, and years later, you're standing in a courtroom dividing furniture and memories. But as painful as that realization is, I'm grateful because that pain carved out space for better things to grow. If Tanya taught me what love isn't, Erica is teaching me what love can be. And the biggest difference? I'm not afraid to walk away anymore if peace is on the line. That's the mindset shift that changes everything. When you stop operating from fear, fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, you stop attracting situations that feed those fears. You start choosing from strength instead of desperation. That's why I don't rush anything now. I want to know the person I'm with from every angle, how they handle stress, how they react to boundaries, how they communicate when things aren't easy. I want to build something slow and steady because the faster you rush something, the easier it crumbles. I remember talking to my buddy Chris at work about this a few months ago. He went through his own rough divorce years back. He said, "The problem is most of us fall in love with potential, not patterns." That line stuck with me. With Tanya, I fell in love with potential, who I thought she could be, who we could be. But with Erica, I'm falling in love with patterns, consistency, kindness, accountability, the everyday actions that actually build something sustainable. And for the first time in a long time, I'm content. Not ecstatic, not infatuated, content. There's a calmness in knowing you're no longer fighting invisible battles. I've also started reconnecting with my old hobbies. Working on cars was always my therapy, but now it feels different. I'm not doing it to escape anymore. I'm doing it because I genuinely enjoy it again. I even started helping a few neighborhood kids learn basic car maintenance on weekends. Watching their curiosity reminds me how good it feels to build something tangible with your own hands, something that doesn't leave you guessing its intentions. That's the beauty of rebuilding your life after heartbreak. You start appreciating the simple things again. Coffee on the porch in the morning, music in the garage, quiet evenings with no yelling, no tension, no eggshells. Peace stops feeling boring. It starts feeling sacred. If I'm being honest, I do sometimes wonder how Tanya's doing. And not out of longing, just human curiosity. I hope she found peace too, in her own way. I don't hate her. I don't even resent her anymore. She was a lesson, a painful, expensive, soul-shaping lesson, but a necessary one. Because the truth is, without her chaos, I wouldn't have discovered my calm. I used to wish I could erase the entire relationship, pretend it never happened. But now I realize that would mean erasing everything I learned too. The heartbreak, the sleepless nights, the humiliation, all of it forged me into someone stronger, wiser, more self-aware. So, yeah, I have regrets, but I'm also grateful for them. They remind me never to settle again, never to silence my gut, never to chase someone who keeps walking away, and never to mistake attention for affection. If I could tell my younger self anything, it would be this. Don't give someone the power to define your worth, because once you do, you'll spend your life chasing validation instead of peace. Today, I'm not chasing anything. I'm attracting what matches my peace. That's what's different now. Erica and I have talked about the future, not in the when are we getting married kind of way, but in the what do we want our lives to look like kind of way. And honestly, that's enough for me right now. I'm not rushing to put labels on anything. I'm not measuring timelines. I'm not trying to prove anything to the world. I just want to keep becoming the kind of man I can be proud of, with or without a woman beside me. Because the truth is, peace doesn't come from the person you're with. It comes from the person you become after losing everything and rebuilding from scratch. I think a lot of men lose sight of that. We spend so much time trying to win love, we forget to love ourselves enough to walk away from things that destroy us. But that's where the real growth happens. when you stop needing validation to feel valuable. That's what Tanya taught me. That's what Erica reinforces every day. I'm not perfect. I still stumble, but I've learned that healing isn't about never hurting again. It's about never letting hurt turn you bitter. So yeah, I regret the past, but I'm also thankful for it because it's what shaped the man I am today. Cautious but open, guarded but kind, slow to trust but never unwilling to try again. I guess what I'm saying is this. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up being the best thing for you. If anyone listening to this is sitting in that post-breakup fog thinking they'll never recover, I promise you will. But you have to stop trying to get over it and start learning from it. Every scar tells a story, and mine tell the story of a man who lost everything he thought he needed, only to realize he already had everything he needed within himself. That's my truth now, and even though I have someone incredible in my life, someone who's 10 times the woman my ex ever was, I'm not sprinting toward forever. I'm walking, one step at a time, enjoying the view, staying grounded and letting peace lead the way. Thanks again, True Story, for giving men like me a space to share what we've lived through. Maybe my story helps another guy see that endings aren't failures, they're foundations.